Tonight. Good, fabulous, fabulous. You know, we've been wanting to have life services here for a long time. We keep talking about it, and sometimes you just keep talking about something and talking about something, you never do it. So finally, we got to that point where I think Mark and Cheryl, who has been our tie to life services for a long time, finally contacted life services, Olivia, and Olivia contacted me, and so we set it up for tonight. So I think it's going to be a great night. I think we're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn some language of how to talk to people about this subject. I think that's what we're going to do, which is great. But I wanted to have Cheryl and maybe Mark come up. Mark's doing this. And just kind of talk to us about what you've done, what your tie has been with life services, and why you thought it was important.
This is interesting for me to do this. But anyway, a few years ago, we got extra money, and I think we sorted it out and sent it to different people. And one of the groups we sent to are these guys. And when we got the stuff back from them, it seemed so personal. And that was a good start. And then I signed up for the 911 prayer chain, which is exciting and saddening, very saddening. And so that's what started kind of us talking about it a lot. Plus, what is the issue in our country? Killing babies. God's going to do something to this country because of that. He is doing something to this country because of that. And we need to change that whole scenario. So these ladies here are working right in the middle of it, and we just need to find out what there is to do for us. But to get on the 911 prayer chain, that's pretty cool, especially when you get a positive thing back and you go, baby's been saved. That's awesome. So we just thank you that you guys are here, and we expect to learn new things and things that we can do for all of us.
You know, it's for me, because Kelly and I have one child who's adopted, and the reason why we have her is because her foster parents, or the foster parents for her mother, called one church and said, "This young lady's looking at having an abortion. Would you come and, share with her?" And that church already had this young lady's, I think, a brother and half the family was in council there. So we don't want to take this young lady too. So call the church that we were going to. And so our the receptionist knew that Kelly had been involved. My wife had been involved with some of this. So Kelly and the youth pastor and his wife went and talked to this young lady and talked her out of having an abortion. And you just don't talk somebody out of having an abortion and go, "Hey, that's a great choice," and leave them. So we just stayed in contact with this young lady and loved on her and took her places and helped her out. And when she was just about 9 months pregnant, she was about 8 months pregnant, she looked at us and said, "Would you like to adopt this little baby?" Oh my gosh, that's a story in itself. But we have a daughter who's 32 years old because of that. So it's really close to my heart that there's things that it can be done. There's people that want those children are wanted. We just have to be able to connect the dots somehow. One of my favorite times when Mark and I used to do a middle school youth group, and him and I are kind of liking the fact that we love middle school because they're just still pretty wacky kids. They're still doing stuff, and you can still really, Stephen, is this on YouTube? No. Yes. I'll say it this way, you can really mess with them still. So we had a great time. One of the things we did was we took our youth group up to life services for an evening where they talked about the whole process and what was going on. And if you ever should come to that point where you need their services, this is what's going to happen. It was great to take these, and this is a long time ago. I don't know if they'd let you do that now. It was great to take those middle schoolers up there for an evening. So it's been a ministry that we really felt that we need to be involved with somehow, so I'm glad they're here tonight. So we have Glendy and Emily and Casey. Oh, there you are. Here tonight to share with us. They're They're going to share what we can do. Okay? So let's give them a big welcome, and however you want, whoever's going to start.
It's good to see all of you guys here. Thank you for coming. My name is Emily. I am the volunteer coordinator of Life Services, and I also just recently took on a new role as community resource director. So right now I'm doing 2 jobs. It's a lot of fun. So we were going to do a little icebreaker, but I kind of feel like the ice is broken and you guys might know each other. Yeah. So let me just open in prayer. Father, we are so thankful to be fully known and fully loved by you, the God of the universe. We're thankful for life. We're thankful that you created all of us on purpose and with a purpose. Thank you for the breath of life. And I just pray tonight, God, that first of all, I thank you for everyone that took the time to be here tonight, just to take the time to listen and to learn, and hopefully walk away with just some tools and equipping on how to talk about life choice and abortion. So I just pray for our evening, pray that that Glendy's words and that my words, that they would be your words. God, we're so thankful for what you're doing, and we pray that tonight would give you the glory. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen. All right, Glendy.
Whoops, I'm dropping stuff already. Emily and I are going to tag team back and forth a little bit. So we're going to keep you on your toes. You're not going to get bored, I promise. Well, hey, here's some of what we want to do tonight. Really the purpose. Number one, we wanted to honor the request. So thank you for bringing us out, you two. Thanks for keeping this piece alive, and for Tony and Kelly for hosting us here. What we want to do is give you some information. We'll talk about some of the stuff that you've heard, right? But we'll also talk about some of the stuff that maybe you haven't heard. We want to give you accurate information. We also want to approach this from a standpoint, hopefully, that you can repeat with the people in your own sphere of influence, right? You have family, you have neighbors, you have coworkers who, some who think that abortion is absolutely okay. And if that's you in this room, we want to ask you to just start where you're at. Okay, we're not sure who exactly is in here with us. I bet you can look around and recognize people. And some of you may be absolutely life-affirming. Start where you're at. And we're hoping to add to that. We're hoping to challenge a little bit of where you're starting at. And then we're also hoping to equip you tonight. So those are kind of our big purposes for tonight. But before we get going, I want to just ask you, Stephen, if you don't mind putting up those slides, we're going to go to the first one. We gave you a set of, or a big card if you want, if you're a note taker. If you're not, you can just go ahead and follow on the slides. But I want to just ask you to fill in the following statement for me. I am blank. Just in your own head, how would you fill in that statement? Some of you might fill it in with your name, right? I am Glendy Mara Loringer. There I am. I get asked about my name a lot. I was actually named after a ski jump, which I thought was really, really cool when I was growing up. And then I became a Christian when I was about 23 years old and started reading the Bible, and I realized my middle name, Mara, means bitter. So I went from cool ski jump to bitter ski jump, just like that. It's all downhill from there. So I know, right? But don't bump me. I need drums. So I am blank. How would you fill it in? Maybe with a role that you play. I am a grandma. I am a grandpa to how many grandkids? 8 grandkids, like Ernie was telling me, right? I am a sister. I am a dad, right? How would you fill that in? I am actually a mom to two. Oh, I have 3. My son just got married. I keep forgetting this. I have 3 kids now. So my oldest got married in July. He's 22, and then my youngest is 19. So grew up in a house of testosterone, 2 boys. So it was fun to add some estrogen into the mix. I am a mom. I am a wife. My husband is the most handsome bald man in the whole universe. I'm completely biased, so sorry for any of you who are follically challenged. But I am blank. Maybe you blessed. I love that. An adjective. Say it again. I thought I heard something else. There you go. Maybe you would fill it in with a role that you play in society. I am a teacher. I am a mechanic. I am a mom, and that's what I get to do, right? There's all these ways that we identify each other with each other. Have you ever walked in church and you walk up to the gal who looks like you or looks like she might know the same things that you do, or the guy, right, who's standing off by himself and you don't want him standing in the corner? We look for those things, and then when we start talking to each other, what are the first things that we look for? The things that we might have in common, right? We look for those commonalities. And that's a human trait that we have, because the things that divide us are many, especially in the past 2-3 years, right? Yeah. Yeah, especially in our society. Life, choice, and abortion are probably some of the biggest ones that divide us. So what we wanted to start with tonight was that commonality. But in order to do that, I want us to agree on a couple of definitions. So this is also going to take, go ahead to the next one, Stephen. I'm just going to keep going. It's going to take a little participation, next one, on your part. I'm going to ask you to define acceptance. How would you define acceptance, that word, in terms of people? Anybody want to take a stab at it? We're a small enough group, I hope I can kind of ask you guys to participate. Acceptance. Non-judgmental. What would you add to non-judgmental? Meeting them right where they're at. Love that. Giving mercy. Right? Yeah, I don't have to agree to treat you well, right? Say it again. Inherent value. Inherent means I'm born with it, right? It's not something, my value is not in what I do or what I bring to society. I'm born with that value. That's good. What else? Acceptance. Grace. Love that. So acceptance, absolutely. All of those things. I'm going to do a lot of my definitions out of dictionary.com, and I do that on purpose. We try to simplify everything that we do, not because we think that our audience is not worthy of more complicated information, but when you're talking about stuff that is very divisive, when you can bring things down to definitions right out of dictionary.com, oftentimes we can agree on that. So really the definition of acceptance is to receive as is, right? As is. Okay, right about approval. Let's go on to the next one. Define approval for me. Anyone? Say that again? I'm okay. Anybody want to take a stab? Giving value. Let me ask this. Does approval have to do more with who I am as a person or what I do or think? A or B? Usually with B. Usually approval has to do with my actions, right? My behaviors, the way I present myself, whether or not you approve of how I'm dressed or how I'm speaking tonight. So definition of approval is to agree with, ratify, sanction, or confirm. So here's my question to you. Do I have to approve of someone, and one of you have already kind of given us the answer, but do I have to approve of somebody's actions, beliefs, or opinions in order to accept them for the person they are? No. Right? We shouldn't. So, but this is my question for you tonight. I'm coming in as a complete stranger to you, right? Pastor Tony invited Emily and Casey and I in here, and you don't know us from Adam. But would you accept us for the people we are, even if what we say you may not approve of? Would you agree to do that tonight? We agree to do that with you as well. To accept us as human beings, because that's the one piece that we all have in common, right? That we are all human, and that's amazing, because it is the one thing that links us all together. So let me ask you this. What qualifies us as human? I'm not a cat, I'm not a dog, I'm not a horse, because my mom was human, my dad was human, and when you put a human and a human together, you don't get a cat, dog, or horse. My human DNA, right? definitely science. And that DNA came from my mom and my dad. So I don't know where you all are in terms of faith. I'm assuming most of you, I've heard that for many of you that this is your church. But I'm going to start with Scripture right there. Here's the first one I want to lay out for you. Genesis 5:3. My parents qualify me for humanness. When Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth. So, Adam fathered a son in his own likeness. Adam and Eve fathered Seth. His parents determined his humanness, right? Because Adam and Eve were the first humans. Second thing that qualifies a person as human would be God. There's the natural transgression, right? The Father would, our Heavenly Father would qualify us as human. And that comes right out of Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them, right? We are the Imago Dei, made in God's image. So God the Father and our parents qualify us all as humans. But then somebody said this earlier, science also qualifies us. The one thing that I love about science and Scripture, science and faith, is that they actually confirm each other. A lot of people think that that science denies faith or religion, right? They actually complement each other so beautifully. And so what we see in science is that my DNA, my scientifically proven DNA, that I have 23 chromosomes from my mom, 23 chromosomes from my dad, right, on the night that they got really frisky happy with each other, and voila, here I am, right, in human form. And so it is settled science that human life actually begins at fertilization or conception. There are people who will argue with that. What we can tell you is 96% of biologists will tell you that life, a human life, begins at conception. And there's another reason we know this, because there are really 3 factors that are necessary for something to be alive and not dead. And that at fertilization, when the sperm meets the egg, right, a zygote is formed. That's the name of the dividing cells, is a zygote. Graduates to embryo at about 9 weeks and fetus at about 15 weeks. And I have a nurse in here, so she's going to challenge me on that, isn't she? I'm not a nurse, so just know that. But there are 3 things that zygote, the newly dividing cells that human being has the ability to direct its own growth and development. It's able to reproduce, right, through cellular reproduction, and it's also able to respond to stimuli and adapt to its environment. Every living human being has to have these 3 things in order to be considered alive, right? So, if you actually just Google life, you will find that life has to have those 3 things in order to be considered not dead or inanimate. Okay, so science and God both complement each other, and they qualify as human. And so why does any of that matter? Just in case you were on safari in Zimbabwe this last summer, something big happened on June 24th, right? Something that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Overturning of Roe v. Wade. And in that moment, and we're going to talk about this in, a little bit more later, that decision actually states that our Constitution does not confer a right to abortion, and it's fueled a lot of divides. I will tell you, I thought COVID was divisive, and all the pieces and parts about vaccines and about masks and where people stood on that. We've not seen anything as divisive as what we've experienced in our My Choice clinics, and especially with the people that we speak to, as the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So, the reason this is so important is because big stuff is happening in our country, and it's divisive. But the other big deal about this is that it matters to God's heart. It matters where we stand. It matters what we believe, and it also matters how we speak about it. Because there's a lot of people out there who are walking wounded, And the way we speak about it will either shove them away or it'll draw them into the conversation. So that's part of what we want to do tonight is help other people, and help draw people into the conversation. So with that, I'm going to kick it back over to Emily, and we're going to bounce back and forth a little bit more.
I can use this. So Glindy just shared about how life choice and abortion can just be so divisive. So how about we do a little exercise, and we're going to try to find a couple things that we have in common. So we're going to go through something called SLED, but first, can you guys all, you guys may have noticed my right arm is amputated, so this is fun for me. So can you guys do something for me? And anybody that's lucky enough to have two arms, stick them out. Close your eyes and touch your nose. Don't poke your neighbor in the face with your arm. Okay. Back out. Touch your eyelid. Close your glasses. Back out and touch your lips. All right. You can open your eyes. So congratulations, you're all sober. But seriously, what is the point? The point is that when you were a 9-week-old embryo in your mother's womb, you had a nose, you had eyelids, you had lips, and you had the beginning of your fingerprints. The only difference is between the 9-week-old you in your mom's womb and the you today is your size, your level of development, your environment, and your degree of dependency. SLED, that's both SLED. So, let's see. Myrnie, is it Myrnie? Are you able to come up here?
She's a good one to pick on.
I think she's just a good one, I can tell. Or I'll come over here to you. I'll come to you. Okay. Do you guys see any difference between Bernie and myself? No. I might be able to reach something a little higher on the shelf, right? Yeah. So would you say that I'm more valuable than Bernie? No. Right. No. Size does not give you your value. Why would we say that a thumb-sized embryo growing in her mother's womb has more value than a 4-month-old baby that a mother holds in her arms, right? Next, we're going to talk about level of development. Is there anybody here without a college degree? Hey, you're my people. Is there anybody here with a college degree? Do you guys have more value than I have? Because your brain is a bit more developed. Do I have more value than a 2-year-old who can't do algebra or read a book? No, it's the same value, right? So the level of development does not determine your value. Next, we're going to talk about environment. If I walked out the door and stood outside and you all were in here still, would you guys be more valuable or would I be more valuable on one side of the door? So we think about a baby in its mother's womb, and maybe a couple seconds later, the mother's holding it in her arms. The difference in environment does not determine the value of the baby, right? Next, we have degree of dependency. I'm guessing maybe some of you maybe have taken care of your older parents, and I'm guessing a lot of you have taken care of infants. I know my parents are getting older, and probably in 5 or 10 years, I'm going to be helping them go to the doctor, helping them remember appointments, right? They might become more dependent on me. When I was a baby, I was dependent on them. Who has more value, though? Do we decide someone doesn't have value because they depend on us? No, we don't. And so it's not an intelligent argument to say, dependence does not depend on your degree of dependence. Your value does not depend on your degree of dependency, There is no essential difference between the embryo you once were and the adult you are here now today that justifies terminating you at the earliest stage. No difference in size, level of development, environment, and the degree of dependency is a good reason for saying that you could be terminated then, but you can't be terminated now. So Lindy's going to come on up, and she's going to review life, what determines life, and what is abortion, and then she's going to go into some statistics.
Yeah, nice job.
I love that. She's got you all.
Pointing all over the place. At least we know that you're all sober. I love that. Okay, so we defined life, right? The three things that determine life, right? Thank you. That an embryo can grow through metabolism, reproduce, and that they have the power to adapt. Determined that life, right, comes from our parents, comes from God, but it also comes from science. Any arguments on that one, on those three? Do we feel like we can all agree on those? Okay. Well, if we've defined life, let's also now define abortion, okay, because that's the big one. So here's the definition of abortion, dictionary.com. It's the removal of an embryo or fetus from the uterus in order to end a pregnancy. Sounds very clean and very sterile, doesn't it? Here's what Randy Alcorn says. An abortion is also a medical or surgical procedure that stops or that ends a beating heart and already measurable brain waves. Sorry, we're going to fast forward for me, Stephen, to what defines abortion, and then we're going to go to some statistics. Here's what I want you all to know. We want to be very mindful that not everybody in the room here, we don't know each other's story, right? And statistics actually tell us that 4 in 10 people have experienced abortion. So first off, just want to say before we dive into any statistics, if this is any part of your story or any part of your family story, there's zero condemnation from us. What we really want to do is just bring grace and hopefully some information and healing opportunities. So before I dive into stats, just wanted to clarify that. And you're going to hear a little bit of my story in just a little bit. But I think it is important for us to know what is going on when it comes to statistics. So if you could go to the statistics slide. Locally, here's what we know. In Spokane, about 14.4% of all pregnancies ended in abortion in 2020. That's the most recent statistic that we had. That jumps by about 2% more when kids get to the age of 20 to 24. And we've actually seen this swing from where there were quite a few abortions with teenagers, and now most of the abortions and most of who we see through our My Choice Clinic and into our maternity home are in their early 20s. And the abortion rates have skyrocketed. And the only theory that we really have there is there's so many more programs it's more acceptable for teens to actually get pregnant, believe it or not, in our society. But our young 20-someths, 18 to 24 years old, have usually moved out of the house and they're on their own. But they're right at the very beginning stages of life, right? Right in the very beginning stages of relationship with a boyfriend or a career or school. And so the overwhelming pressures on them to abort are so much higher than they might have been even in their teen years. So in Washington State, almost 17,000 abortions were performed in 2020, and then nationally, that number jumps to nationally it was 879,000. Stephen, you want to fast? There we go. 879,000 in 2017. Here's what I do want you to know about national statistics is 22% of those are in Hispanic mothers and 37% of those are in African American mothers. The African American population of females in America is only down around 23%. I think it's like 23.9%. So you actually have more abortions in African American mothers, yet the percentage of those African American mothers is lower of actually their existence. So you can't tell me that this isn't racially driven. It is absolutely racially driven. Worldwide, there's an estimated 72 million abortions every year, and about 25% of those, or all pregnancies, actually end in abortion. Here's the one thing about statistics that is really crazy. There are no governing laws that require an abortion facility to report any of their numbers. In fact, New Hampshire, Maryland, and California have not reported any abortion statistics in the last 10 years. And they account for almost a fifth of the abortions in America. So there are no governing laws requiring them to say how many abortion pills they've sent in the mail or how many surgical abortions that they've done. So just want you to know that when you see abortion statistics, there really is no way to actually measure this because there's no governing body that says that any abortion clinic has to report. And then the faith component. About 70% of those who experience an abortion will identify as Christian. Go ahead and fast forward, Stephen. Just stay there. There is one of the newest studies out that probably breaks my heart the most. I'm very active in our church in Spokane. One of the big statistics out there is that 4 in 10 in the church have experienced abortion. Only 7% ever tell anyone in their church. And that breaks my heart. This should be the safe place. This should be the place where we bring our pain. This should be the place where we find grace, right? So hopefully we can help turn that around. Abortion practice, I'm not going to go into a ton. I just want to clarify a couple of things. If you'd fast forward, there we go. Plan B. There's a lot of talk about the abortion pill. So Plan B is actually called the morning after pill. Sometime another type of it is called Ella. And really what that does is it just delays the release of the egg. And sometimes it can also delay or stand in the way of the implantation of the fertilized egg into the uterus. And so that happens in just the first 24 to 48 hours after a woman is impregnated. So some people do actually consider the Plan B or morning pill an abortifacient. But it's not actually considered by our governing bodies like the CDC to be an abortion itself. Does that make sense? Okay. Medication abortion, however, is the fastest growing abortion out there. And we actually wanted to show you a video. So Stephen, if you could cue up that video, we're going to give you a little bit of information. This came out of our center in the past year, and this is Alicia's story.
This is the My Choice Clinic. My name is Becca. How can I help you?
Hi, my name's Alicia. I had an appointment for an abortion today, and I just took the pill they gave me, but now I'm so scared that I made a huge mistake.
Oh, Alicia, I'm so sorry you're going through this. When specifically did you take the abortion pill?
I think it was around 2 this afternoon.
Okay, Alicia, this next question is very important. The clinic gave you a second pill. Have you taken it yet?
I got a call about midnight, and it was, on the other end was a pretty panicked young lady who was thought she wanted maybe to reverse her abortion. We have the ability to reverse that abortion if we catch it in time. And what we need to do is, within 48 hours after she's taken the first pill, we need to initiate progesterone, high doses of progesterone, to try to reverse the effects of the first pill she's taken. And if we do that, there's about a 60% chance that we can reverse it.
Alicia was not unlike other clients that we'd seen in the past. I think there was such a heightened emotion around all of this. You think about what she had gone through the past week. She went from finding out she was pregnant to, oh no, I need to fix this, to starting the abortion process and then suddenly realizing, I don't want to do this. She had moved from fear of, oh no, I'm pregnant, to fear of, it might be too late for me to save the baby.
This was a particularly hard week. week because most of us were on isolation from COVID. The clinic was shut down, and there was only a couple of us that were able to be available.
It was difficult, the ultrasound for Alicia, because when we got in there to do the ultrasound, the only things that we saw were the gestational sac and the yolk sac. So we knew immediately from there that this was not something we were going to know today, if this pregnancy was going to continue or not. So we knew at that point that we would be drawing blood work to see what her pregnancy hormone levels were, and then also we knew that we would be needing to do another ultrasound. So she came in on a Wednesday for her first appointment. We did not see her again until the next Tuesday. I think when Alicia came back for her second ultrasound, we were both feeling quite guarded because we had been getting these text messages and images that were difficult. We were very reserved in our excitement, and at the same time almost thinking through how are we going to talk to her if it looks like this baby has not survived. I think that moment when we put the probe on, it will be in our brains forever because, she was very early. So the baby was measuring 4 millimeters. So it's a little bit smaller than a grain of rice. But instantly abdominally, we could see a heartbeat. I just think in that moment, we were all of us, of course, Alicia and her friend, and we're just overcome.
This was a really great story that we got to tell you, but the truth is, sometimes they're not really great.
Hi, I just found out I was pregnant a couple days ago, and I have too many health problems to go through with the whole pregnancy. Plus, my last pregnancy, I had a stillborn baby at 8 months, and I don't want anything to do with another pregnancy. And I have an appointment in Seattle on Friday for an abortion, but they want me to get an ultrasound first to see for sure how far along I am, and I think I'm about 19 or 20 weeks. But do you have any ultrasound appointments today? I need to get one before Friday. Okay, bye.
Janine has heard me lament about this so often because it's hard, but I want to make people carry their babies.
Right.
I want to make people get help for their addictions. I want to make people leave bad relationships, and that is not what we do. It's hard that we have to release people to their decisions, and I think the privilege of this story is we got a front row seat to watch God work. We just are one little piece, and God sees the big picture. We just are delighted to be able to introduce you to baby Ava and let you ooh and ah over her as we have done.
This is a person who's going to go on to do we don't know what in the world and have a family, and her family's going to have family, and it's just not one baby. So I think that really, just looking at that picture, I think just explodes your heart for what God has done.
Anybody else teary? I can't watch that without being teary, right? The reason we want you to know is because APR is something that we offer in our My Choice clinic. And so many people don't realize that 50% of the abortions now are chemical or medication. They use that interchangeably. And it's actually being sent out through the mail in many cases. It is one of the ways that pro-abortion opponents, or pro-abortion that side is actually trying to battle the overturning of Roe v. Wade is through medication abortion. And so we are able to offer APR, abortion pill reversal, but we have to catch them in that 48-hour window. So they have to connect with us. And people, once they know about it, they know about it. And we have a hotline on our website. So we wanted you to know that. Tony. Well, if I was an abortion provider and I told you that it could be reversed, then I'd be throwing my thousands of dollars down the tank, right? Yeah. You're talking anywhere between $700 and $600 to $900 for a medication abortion. So no, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sound derogatory on that, but they really. Let me back up. I don't want to speak for the abortion providers. Our gut is that it's about money. And that's what we've heard over and over and over. But they don't, yeah. Unfortunately, Here's the hard part about abortion as I go through. I'm just going to give a couple more examples. Unfortunately, our society has bought this lie that this is health care. And I don't know where you stand on this, but my husband's a medical provider, right? He's done minor surgeries, and there's not a surgery or a procedure that he has done in the office that he hasn't had to warn you and give you all of the possibilities. You could die if my scalpel slips, or right? Your physician, every one of us in here who's had any kind of procedures had all of these disclaimers. If this happens, this could happen, right? It doesn't happen with abortion. They're literally, honestly, trucked through like cattle in many, many places. And we hear the horror stories. Let me give you a little bit more information. So medication abortion accounts for 45 to 50% of all abortions. The next level, up to about 15 weeks, is what's called an aspiration or a suction abortion, where the baby is still tiny enough to be sucked into a cannula or a tube and then deposited in basically a vacuum. I'm not going to go into any more detail. And then the last two, a D&E or dilation and extraction, both the baby is too large to pass. And so they actually have to, let's just say he or she can't come out in one piece. And most people don't understand what happens at an abortion, right? I know. Those are big, huge, big, deep breaths, right? One of the things I want us to remember is that we have an enemy who wants to fight against us. And yet we have a God who is so much bigger than this. And we can't ever, ever forget that. And it's why we do what we do. Okay? So, okay, big, deep breath. That's hard information, right? Let me move on real quick. I want to talk just real quick about the language, because this is one of the things that we battle is the language. We've heard a lot that abortion is healthcare. We know now what actually happens. We know that a baby starts to feel pain at 9 weeks old, right? So a baby in a suction abortion can actually feel what's happening. Bernard Nathanson, we hear a lot about pro-choice. And let me real quick dial into our name. We get a lot of questions. Are you Life Services or are you My Choice? Yes, we are both. Life Services is the overarching organization, and My Choice Clinic is the name of our clinic. And we did that on purpose. Part of what we hear all the time in our clinic is that gals feel like they don't have a choice. They feel like their only choice is for abortion. So we wanted to give them back their language and their voice. And so that's one of the reasons that we named our clinic My Choice Clinic. Choice was actually used. Bernard Nathanson is the OBGYN and who helped create the pro-abortion movement. And so in the 1970s, he and some of his cronies actually chose the word pro-choice as a marketing ploy, right? Here's what Jorel Godsey, he's the head of Heartbeat International. He says, choice that only points in one direction, though, is not choice at all. It's coercion. I think I have some slides for these. Yeah, there we go, Stephen. And then George Orwell says, he who controls the language controls the masses. Remember when George wrote the book 1984? And then Randy Alcorn took that a step further and says, corrupt language and you corrupt thought. Abortion is like that. This is what's happened. It's the language. And we have the power as God's people to help take back some of that language and to help correct some of these thought processes that have become insidious and kind of, wheedled their way into our young people's brains, right? Okay. Roe v. Wade, just real quick. I want to make sure that we all understand what the overturning of Roe v. Wade actually did. Roe v. Wade simply states that our Constitution does not confer a right to abortion, and then it sent that decision back to the states. Okay? The language in pro-choice tries to very, very surreptitiously, kind of sneakily, make it seem like this is great for women. What we can tell you is it's not health care, and it's not great for women or men. we often hear men tell us their stories. And so I'm going to let Emily share a little bit about what we do and how we get to combat some of this language and kind of stand in the gap. So you want to tell them about Life Services?
Okay. I'm going to use the microphone this time. I never picked it back up last time. So Glindy kind of went into the reason why we have the word choice in our name. And so I just want to go kind of into how do we come alongside men and women in these things that we've been talking about. So Life Services is a Christ-centered organization dedicated to the sanctity of life at conception. We offer hope, truth, medical care, and support from a biblical perspective, helping anyone that's facing an unplanned pregnancy, helping them to make a life-affirming decision and encouraging a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And so how do we do that? So usually our clients come to us, they're a little worried, right? Worried they may be pregnant. So their first stop is into our My Choice Medical Clinic. And so what happens in our clinic? Our clinic offers pregnancy testing, ultrasounds, and we also do STD and STI testing. But beyond those practical helps, our nurses and our advocates do a fantastic job of just meeting our clients right where they're at with love and compassion. They provide a non-judgmental atmosphere where it feels safe, where our clients can share their story, and it really helps slow their thinking down, right? Because when we're in crisis, our brains are going 500 miles an hour. And so some of our clients, all they're seeing is just that one choice, right? Just a way out. And so our nurses do a great job of just educating them about all of their choices so they can look forward to the future with hope instead of fear. And so from our clinic, we refer them in several different ways. We have a maternity home, like Lindy was saying. We have a residential program. And this summer, our team took some time. We paused our maternity home, and we took some time to just reevaluate how things were going, because we've seen a lot of changes in the last couple of years. And so we took a look at what was working and what wasn't working. And we realized that that our clients need more than just housing. And so we decided to put more of our resources into our mentoring programs and into our life skills programs and into our fatherhood program. We are a nonprofit organization, and we are Christ-centered. And so you know what that means. We receive no government funding. And so we just want to make sure that we are stewarding our resources in a way that can most effectively meet the needs of our clients. And what they need are those relationships, someone to walk beside them after baby's born, because that's when it gets hard, right? That's when the rubber really meets the road. And so we want to have them be in a community of support. And so we refer to our mentoring programs for both men and women. A couple years ago, we started our fatherhood program. Someone looked around and thought, wow, I think that someone was you, Glindy, maybe. They thought, wow, we have all these resources for women and moms, but how many people are involved in an unplanned pregnancy? There's 3, right? Mom, baby, and dad. So we have an awesome fatherhood program. We've got some great mentors that come alongside our young men and just help them to step into that God-given role of being a dad. We also have a lot of clients that come through our clinic that have trauma in their past, sexual trauma. And so we refer to 8-week healing groups for the trauma from abortion, trauma from sexual abuse, and also trauma from miscarriage. And these are gender-specific groups. They go for 8 weeks, and men are with men, women are with women. And I have some sexual trauma in my past, and so I've been through one of their groups, and I've done a lot of work on myself. I have more than sexual trauma in my past. I have addiction and other issues, and so I've had a lot of counseling, and I thought, well, you know, I'm pretty good. But someone suggested that I go through that group, and the Lord is so good, right? He just always wants to take off another layer. And he's so good with the healing that he brings. So if any of you have any questions about that group specifically afterwards, I would love to talk to you. And then, Glindy and I, we don't stand up here without our stuff, right? Our past. We both have a story. And she's going to come up here and just share some of her story and some of the healing. So,
Thanks, Em. You know why we do this way, right? This is not easy to talk about, so we tag team it. But I also want you to get two different perspectives, right? So why in the world would I get involved with somebody I was a high school teacher. Why would a high school teacher get involved with someplace but like Life Services? Let me just share with you a little snippet of my story, because I think a lot of what I experienced is a lot of what we hear in our clinic. I was raised in Montana as a Creaster, Christmas Eve, Easter Sunday churchgoer. You've all heard that one, right? It was amazing growing up, and it was also very hard because I had some real hard stuff that was happening underneath the surface. Some family members that had gotten a hold of me, and I experienced some sexual trauma at a really young age, and that played out into my teen years in pretty promiscuous ways. And that's not always fun to share with a group of people in the room, but I know that the Lord's redeemed that. When I was 17, though, I found out I was pregnant. And my very first words were, I can't have a baby. I can't have a baby. So everything from then forward was to make sure that I didn't have a baby. And so 4 days before I headed out here to go to Eastern, I terminated the life of my first child through abortion. And then I entered into this emotional spiral that was crazy and downhill. And I literally was kind of jumping from party to party and guy to guy for my freshman, sophomore year. And then I met this guy who had a security about him. And there was a steadiness about this guy named John, that really handsome bald guy. That he wasn't bald then. I would ask him about his faith because he went to church. And I would ask him all these jaded questions about God. Like, so you pray. Does that mean that you talk to God? And does he answer you? Are you hearing voices? And he would just answer me deadpan, like, yes, I pray. Yes, I believe in God. And yeah, sometimes I do hear him. And it would just shut me up. I'd be like, so we got married and had our first child, Reed, the one who just got married this summer. And it was amazing. And then our second child, God called us to adopt our second child, Adam. And it was with his adoption that everything kind of hit the fan. I began experiencing anger unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I'd always had intimacy issues and anger issues, control issues, but not like this. Everything kind of seemed to tip over the edge. And I literally became a danger to the kids. And I still remember my husband coming home and telling me, I'm not going to lose these kids because of you. It's time to get your anger under control. So I started meeting with our pastor's wife, our Kelly. Her name is Diana. And she prayed and just asked the Lord what the root of the anger was. And immediately I knew it was the abortion that I'd had at 17, because my new son's mom, birth mom, had the courage to give him life, carry him all the way through, and then placed him in my arms as his adoptive mama, when I'd done the exact opposite at 17 and terminated my son's life out of fear. So that unworthiness to be Adam's mom was just like a cloud that hung over me. Here's the most amazing part. I kept meeting with Diana, and there was a day that Diana suggested that we walk back through the day of the abortion. And I was like, nope, see you later. She persisted, and she started asking me questions about that day. And wasn't anything I wanted to remember, but it just kind of all came bubbling out. And we got to I'm telling Diana all of the details I remember. We got to the end, and I remember yelling, I killed my baby at the end. So I'm recounting this to Diana. And when I said that out loud, I literally had the very first vision I'd ever had in my life. I literally saw a white wall lift, and behind it I saw Jesus. And he said, Glendy, that wasn't just tissue. That was a baby. That was your son, and you'll be with him in heaven someday. So I know that I have a son in heaven, named him Timothy. And Diana guided me to forgive myself. Huge step. So many people don't forgive them. We walk in that unforgiveness. We think that this is the unforgivable sin. There is no unforgiveness in heaven. I stand absolutely forgiven for what Jesus did, and I know he's called me forward to share that story. We shared it with both of my kids when they were 12. That was amazing and hard, but they know that they have a son or a brother waiting for them in heaven. And here's the most amazing thing that we see is that oftentimes healing from abortion, healing from sexual trauma, healing from miscarriage can be such an incredible catalyst in somebody's faith life, because that was the day where Jesus became who he actually said he was in my heart. That was the day I finally fully believed him. I'd accepted him, but I really didn't believe that he truly loved me. And that was the day ministry started for me. So I want to encourage you. You have people in your sphere of influence. You have people who you know, who you're related to, who have walked through abortion and need that healing. You can see it you see the symptoms, right, in their lives. Just want to encourage you. We have those opportunities back there. So we are going to transition just a little bit. One of the things that we know from having these conversations is that they don't happen just like this. I just recommended to you that you, if you know somebody who's had an abortion in their past, I recommended to you that you actually encourage them towards healing. How the heck do you start that conversation, right? It's not like, hey, let's go out to coffee. Right? Those are hard conversations to have. So one of the things that we want to do in this class is help you enter into those conversations. So we're going to do a little bit of interaction time. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do right now is just get yourselves in pods of 5 people. And yes, I hope you will all participate with us. And you're all like, believe me, this will actually be good. So get yourself in pods of 5 people and just sit with that group. And then I'll give you your next instruction. Casey, come up here. There you go. Okay, yes, you can cheat if you want to have 6. Look at it. We're like, 1, 2, 3. Okay, are you all there? Okay, you're going to want to get to where you're going to have a conversation, so you can either turn your chairs, although, I'm sorry, Tony, we're going to mess with your arrangement. If you want to turn your chairs, there you go. Okay, I'm going to give you a few instructions first, and then we're going to do a little bit of the interaction. When you start a conversation, let me start with just a few recommendations that we have. When you start a conversation about life, choice, or abortion, the first thing that we want to recommend is that you never start with a statement, right? Shelley, is that right? Cheryl, oh, I'm so sorry. Cheryl, if I come up to you and I get right here and I say, abortion is wrong. Okay. What does that do in you? Right? Kind of makes you lean back, right? That's an opinion. It's a statement. But if I stood back, gave Cheryl a little bit of space, and invited her in with a question, Cheryl, can we have a conversation about something that may be a little funky, might be a little uncomfortable? Are you open? Sure. Okay. Right? I'm inviting her into a conversation. So that's the first recommendation we have in any conversation, no matter how it starts, about life, choice, and abortion. Start with a question. Questions invite conversations. They draw people in. Statements push people away. What's the first thing that we always want to run to, though? Our statements, right? Our statements, we tell. How many of us in here have been parents? Right? We're tellers, right? Get your homework done. Okay? Yeah, this is not that. This is the opposite of how we were actually wired. So this is why we're all in groups, okay? Second recommendation that we want to do is you're out to win the person, not the argument. Okay? This is not about an argument. There are lives at stake. If this was about an argument, it would be a political issue. It is not a political issue. It's a moral issue that's been politicized. This is about people. And this is about lives. So win the person, not the argument. Second thing or third thing, keep the main thing the main thing. Here's the deal. We get in the weeds, right? We get in the weeds when we start talking about her, when we start talking about all of the outlying issues. The issue is it morally right to end the life of an innocent preborn child? That is the main thing. We keep the main thing the main thing. If we truly believe that life begins at conception, we have to ask ourselves in any situation, no matter what, is it morally right in a just society that we live in like America to end the life of a preborn child? Okay? Keep the main thing the main thing. Fourth thing, be kind. You just heard my story. If you had come at me when I was 25 years old with a statement like abortion is wrong, I would have been out that door and I probably would never have returned to your church. In fact, I had a pastor once who stood up, and I was a brand new Christian. My husband and I had just moved to the South, and I loved this man. He was the first pastor that who actually treated me like a human, and actually spoke to me. But he stood up there on Sanctity of Life Sunday, and he said, "Those women who murder their babies through abortion need to be held accountable." And I did that. I hid in the bathroom for the rest of the sermon. Didn't hear anything he had to say. I went back only because my husband kind of dragged me out of the house kicking and screaming, but it buried me, right? So be kind. Know that there's a story on the other side of every person you talk to. And that would be the last thing. As you hear what they have to say about life choice and abortion, it's okay to ask them their story, right? Just saying, "Hey, Emily, what's your story?" That's a little awkward. You can do it in a bunch of different ways. But there sounds like there might be a story behind that statement or that thought. Or where does that come from? You invite them to share their story, their experience. The number one predictor of let me get this right. The number one predictor of whether or not someone will form an opinion about something is what experience they've had with that something. There are so many people around us that we don't know who've had experiences with abortions. And we don't get there unless they trust us. Okay? So there's our 5 recommendations. Those are actually on your cheat sheet, okay? If you want. Here's what I want to ask you now. I'm just going to ask you to take 1 minute. So this is your first assignment in your little group. I want you to take about 1 minute and just brainstorm, come up with what you think are the 5 top reasons that people think abortion should be okay, that it should be allowed, that it is okay. What are the 5 top reasons that you have heard people say that abortion is okay? Do that in your group real quick, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, you got about 30 seconds. Okay, come back to me. You're going to get more time to share, so don't worry. You're not in these pods for just 1 minute. All right, tell me, what do you think the top reasons are that people say that abortion is okay? My body, my choice. The woman's body, right? Oh, wait, what did you say? Rape or incest. Those we'll keep those as one. So my body, my choice. A woman's choice. Rape and incest would be number 2. Gender. That's actually becoming in Asian and Latin companies. Asian and Latin countries, that is probably one of the number 1 choices. There are a lot of Asian religions I think it's Indian, where the son has to light the funeral pyre for the parents once the parents die, or they do not go to heaven. And so if they don't have sons and they get pregnant with girls, they'll just continue to abort the girls until they can actually get pregnant with a son. So there are several religions around the world where abortion is all for gender. Okay, so rape and incest, my body, my choice, gender. Okay, it's not a baby yet, right? It's just a clump of cells. It's not human. It's not a person, right? We've all heard, have you heard any other versions of that? It's just tissue. It's not viable. Not a viable life. Season of life, right? Yeah. Yep, so that would be not personhood. There's they call that sentience, that the baby doesn't have an awareness. What were you going to say? Finances is another one. Poverty, right? We don't want to see any more babies born into the, what am I trying to say? Into poverty cycle, yeah. Drug addiction. Inconvenience. There's one more that's actually become the most common, and in Iceland it is completely eradicated, all Down syndrome. So any medical need of the mother, and oftentimes when I present at high schools, that's probably the one I hear the most. What about if the mother has this? Or what if she has surgery, or she has an accident, or she has cancer, or she has this? That's what a lot of our young people run to, the health of the mother or the baby. So I'm just gonna talk about 5 real quick. It's not a human yet. What have you heard that refutes that? What have you heard tonight? If it has the DNA of a human, it's not a cat or a horse or guinea pig, right? It's a human. Say it again. It's a human at conception, and science proves this. 96% of biologists actually agree that life begins at fertilization. Okay? What else have you heard? There's only 4 differences, right? Between the babies that we once were in our mother's wombs and the babies that we are today, the adults, right? SLED. Size, level of development, environment, degree of dependency. We actually have some cards. You can put those in your pocket that have SLED on them. They're about business card size, so you can take those with you if you want to remember SLED. So we've already proven tonight, right, or we've already discussed the fact that this is a human. It is a person, right, from the moment of conception. So one of the questions that I often ask when somebody brings up, what about viability? You use the word viability. When do you consider a baby viable? Well, at the heartbeat. What's the big deal about a heartbeat? Why that? Why not first breath? Why not? What's the big deal about breath? Turn everything into a question. Why is heartbeat important to you? Why is the first breath important to you? Why is sentience or awareness important to you? Where do you see that in science? Where have you read that? What has confirmed that for you? Turn everything into a question. Okay? Doable? All right, let's go on to number 2. My body, my choice. It is settled science that at the moment of conception, a new genetically unique, newly existing living human individual is formed. You and me. Right? So if I am pregnant, it is not a parasite. It is a new, unique human being that is dependent on me as the mother. And as the mother, as the adult, the rational, logical choice is that I would protect and support that infant. Right? Anybody want to speak to that at all? Okay, my body, my choice. One of the things that we see in young people is that they don't understand what happens during an abortion. They don't understand that this isn't just a clump of cells. I was told by our nurse that it was 2.2 ounces of tissue, and I stood on that lie for 16 years before God finally revealed the truth to me, that I have a son in heaven. And when I found out that at 9 weeks he could feel pain, he had measurable brain waves, that he had fingers, eyes, eyelids, nose, lips, I was horrified because he wasn't just 2.2 ounces of tissue. This is where the questions about what do you know about a 9-week-old in the womb? When can a heartbeat be detected? What do you know? Right? You can just ask them questions. You don't have to have all those answers. You can actually Google the answers right there. When can a heartbeat be detected on an infant? Google it right there, and you two together discover that, oh my gosh, at 6 weeks, when are most medication abortions done? Between 9 and 11 weeks. They have a heartbeat, they can feel pain, they have fingers, toes. We all just discovered that because we Googled this together and we discovered this together. You see how you can turn that into questions and investigating together? Okay. Poverty. Let me ask you this. Is a person's socioeconomic status a determination of their value? Okay, so if I'm going to say that a 4-month-old in the womb should be terminated because his mama is dependent on the state, why can't I terminate that mama's 2-year-old? Does poverty determine value? No. So you tag that onto sled. Rape and incest. This is the one that gets everybody. And here's what I will tell you. Please don't go to the 1 to 3% stat, because I am one of those 1 to 3% stats, and Emily shared with you that she is too. And that's hard. We're not a stat. We're a people. Right? Here's what I can tell you about rape, though, and we hear this over and over and over. Rape is trauma. Abortion is trauma. Abortion after rape is trauma compounding trauma. No woman who has just been sexually traumatized needs more trauma. They need help. And oftentimes we hear the gals who will choose to carry following a trauma like that. There's a resilience that is born in them unlike anything that they've ever known before. So abortion after trauma is abortion after rape is trauma compounding trauma, right? Okay, last one real quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. How am I doing on time, Tony? We doing okay? Okay. The last thing would be the health of the baby or the health of the mother. I think this is such a tough one because we get this all the time in our clinic. We actually have physicians who will tell our clients that that their baby has some chromosomal abnormality or Down syndrome and they have to abort. And it's like a stab to us because we see those babies on the ultrasound and they're moving and grooving and they're amazing, right? So you have to go to a degree of dependency. Does dependence on another human being determine value? So if my Down son, I don't have a Down syndrome son, but if I did, right? Just because he's more dependent on me than maybe my adult son, why would that determine his value? It doesn't. Okay? The health of the mother, here's what you need to know from a medical standpoint. And again, I'm not a nurse, but from our medical director, there is not a medical condition that any woman could find herself in where they could not remove that baby with a C-section within about 30 minutes, and that baby can survive, right? An ectopic pregnancy, the thing you keep hearing about this, ectopic is where the pregnancy is in the fallopian tube. That is not a viable pregnancy, meaning that the child will not survive. It is not in the uterus where it can flourish, so it is not an abortion. And in Washington State, women will not be denied health care for ectopic pregnancies. I know that's a big lie that's been perpetuated since Roe v. Wade. So you've gotten a lot of information, right? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to put your heads together a little bit, and I want you to do a little bit of role playing. When was the last time any of you did role playing? You're so excited. Here's why we encourage role playing. There's something that happens when you are put on the spot and you have a question. Anybody in here ever experience your heart racing? Like, I'm not sure how to answer that, right? We want to do that in this safe space. We want to give you the opportunity to navigate and tackle a situation and figure out what you might ask, how you might lead in, or how you might navigate that conversation before you're actually in that conversation. Because some of you have grandkids, kids, neighbors, coworkers that you need to have a conversation with, or it's coming. Because what Emily and I have experienced is you don't sit in a presentation like this without God doing something with it down the road. So you have something coming, every single one of you in here. We want to help you just get a start on navigating that conversation. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to just pass these out in your group. You'll each have the same sheet. It'll give you a scenario. You share the scenario with each other. You decide who wants to role play, who wants to be each one of the roles. And then you spend about 5 or 6 minutes role playing. If we have any brave ones, we'll put you on the spot and bring you up here. If you want to. I'm not going to force anybody to do that. But what I want to do is then we'll come back to you and just determine some of the things that you may have learned. So please don't just talk through this. Actually, choose somebody. So here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to pick the principal in your group, the one who's going to make sure that they enforce the rules. Okay? Then I want you to pick the people who will actually do the role playing. Yeah, you all, it's funny how everybody can pick the principal. Okay, so we're going to do this for about 10, 15 minutes. All right. Here we go. There it is. There it is. Whoop. There it is. I need one more. Okay, I will come back to you in about 10, 15 minutes. So ready, set, go.